What if I told you that the secret to mastering your own focus, to finally getting a handle on distraction, lies not in self-help books, but inside the architecture of artificial intelligence? We're about to connect two worlds that seem miles apart, your own consciousness and the silicon minds that are reshaping our planet.
So let's start with a simple question. What could you possibly have in common with something like GPT-4? Well, the answer is one single, incredibly powerful word: attention. Now, for us, we think of attention as focus or distraction, right? For an AI, it's literally the mechanism that allows it to work, to make sense of things. But is that just a fluke? Are we just using the same word for two totally different things? Or could it be a clue to a much deeper truth about how intelligence itself works, whether it's grown in a body or built in a data center?
You know, on the one hand, you've got human consciousness. We experience attention as this constant battle, trying to manage our limited mental energy. And on the other hand, you've got silicon computation, where attention is this elegant mathematical dance that lets an AI string together a coherent sentence. They feel like polar opposites. But today, we're going to build a bridge between them.
But before we can build that new bridge, we've got to tear down the old one, the one most of us use every single day to think about our own minds. It's a story that feels intuitive, it feels right, but as we're about to see, it's actually holding us back.
This is what we can call the resource metaphor. It's the idea that you wake up with a full tank of focus fuel, and as you go through your day, that tank just gets emptier and emptier. And it feels true, doesn't it? After a tough meeting, you feel drained. And look, it's not wrong that something is limited. But the real question is this actually a good explanation for what's happening?
So what makes an explanation good? Well, a truly good scientific explanation can't just be a story that fits the facts after they've already happened. It needs to be what we call hard to vary. It has to make specific, testable predictions about what's going to happen. So let's put this resource myth to the test.
First up, the classic invisible gorilla experiment. You've probably heard of this, right? You ask people to count basketball passes, and they get so focused they completely miss a person in a gorilla suit walking right through the middle of the scene. The resource myth kind of shrugs and says, well, yeah, their attention resource was all used up on the basketballs. Okay, fair enough. The story fits. But it can't predict why we miss the gorilla, but we'd probably notice if a car horn blared. It explains it away, but it doesn't predict anything specific.
Okay, puzzle number 2, dual task interference. Why is talking on the phone while driving so incredibly difficult and dangerous, but driving while listening to music is, well, it's fine? The resource myth would just say, oh, talking uses up more resources. But see, that's not an explanation. That's just putting a new label on the problem. The theory is way too flexible. It can't tell you ahead of time which two tasks are going to interfere with each other.
In this last one, this is where the resource myth just completely falls apart. It's called the Stroop Effect. Try to name the color of the ink for a word, but the word itself is a different color. It is weirdly hard to do. Why? This has nothing to do with a lack of energy. It's about a conflict between two automatic processes in your brain. The resource model has no answer for this. It's a huge clue that we need a fundamentally different way of thinking. So if attention isn't a resource, if it's not a fuel tank, what is it? Well, this is where we build our bridge. We're going to construct a whole new framework, from the ground up, starting with one powerful central idea.
I want you to forget the fuel tank. Forget the battery. Think of attention as a searchlight. It's the process your brain, and as it turns out, an AI, uses to form a question, point it out at the world, and then find an answer in the absolute flood of data coming in. This new theory stands on 3 really solid pillars. First, a hard limit imposed by the laws of physics. Second, a surprisingly universal computational solution to that limit. And third, the ancient evolutionary programming that tells the whole system where to point. Let's break them down.
All right, first up, the physics. Get this, your senses, your eyes, your ears, are taking in around 11 million bits of data every single second, but your conscious mind, it can only handle about 50. 50! That is an unbelievable compression ratio. So you see, selection, choosing what to pay attention to, it isn't a luxury. It's a physical necessity dictated by your energy budget.
Now this is where it gets really mind-bending. Look at the parallel here. On the left, you have how AI attention works in a transformer model. It generates a query, basically, what am I looking for? On the right, you have a leading theory from neuroscience called predictive processing. The brain generates a prediction, what do I expect to see? Both systems then compare that to the incoming data and weigh everything based on how relevant or precise it is. I mean, think about that. AI engineers and neuroscientists, working in completely different fields, arrived at the exact same fundamental solution. That's not a coincidence. That tells you you're onto something true.
So we have this physical bottleneck and this elegant computational solution. But what's steering the ship? What tells the searchlight where to point? Evolution. Your brain is hardwired from millions of years of survival to constantly, automatically test a few key hypotheses. Is that a threat? Is that a reward? Is that new? And modern technology? It's basically a hijacking machine for these ancient triggers. That little red notification badge, that's a threat signal. The infinite scroll on social media, it's a fire hose of novelty. Our survival code is being used against us.
Okay, so this is a fascinating theory, right? But here's where it stops being just a cool idea and becomes an incredibly powerful tool. Let's use this new lens of hypothesis testing to look at our own minds, and you'll see how it reframes everything from genius to everyday distraction.
Take a chess grandmaster and a total novice. They're looking at the exact same board, the same 64 squares. The novice generates these vague, fuzzy hypotheses. Maybe I should move this piece over here? The Grandmaster, though, they generate incredibly precise, testable hypotheses. I hypothesize that if I sacrifice my knight now, I can force a checkmate in 4 moves. See, experts don't have a bigger attention gas tank. They've just learned to ask much, much better questions.
And once you see it this way, so many other things just click into place. Learning isn't about passively soaking up information like a sponge. It's about actively testing your own hypotheses against the material. Those amazing flow states, that's what happens when the hypotheses you're testing are perfectly balanced on the edge of your abilities. And distraction? Distraction isn't a character flaw. It's just what happens when you haven't given your brain a good enough hypothesis to test, so its powerful searchlight goes looking for a better one, and usually finds it on your phone.
So, what does this all mean for us? Well, it means we've been trying to manage our attention all wrong. It's not about willpower or gritting your teeth or conserving some magical energy. It's about becoming a better architect of your environment and a better director of your own mind. So here's the user manual.
Step 1. You have to stop the constant hijacking of your evolutionary triggers. Every single non-essential notification is a false alarm screaming, "Threat, novelty, pay attention to me." Turn them off. Put your phone in grayscale mode to make it less rewarding. The goal is to design an environment where the only things signaling for your attention are the things you've actually decided are important.
Step 2, and this is the real game changer. Give your attention a high-quality target. Never ever sit down to just work on the project. That's way too vague. Your brain's hypothesis engine will get bored and wander off. Instead, you have to frame it as a specific, testable hypothesis. For example, my hypothesis is that this data flow can be restructured to reduce latency. I am going to test that right now.
And third, you have to respect the physics. Remember that 20% number? This whole incredible system runs on real metabolic energy. You can't cheat biology. So get to know your own energy rhythms. Track yourself for a week. Find that 2 or 3 hour window where you're at your absolute peak, and protect that time with your life. That's when you test your most important hypotheses.
We've just covered a whole new theory of attention, from artificial intelligence all the way to your daily to-do list. But look, a theory is just a bunch of ideas until you actually put it into practice. So the real question is, are you ready to run an experiment on your own mind?
So I want to leave you with a very simple 24-hour experiment. Tonight, reduce those false signals. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Then generate a better hypothesis. Write down one specific, testable question you want to answer tomorrow. For the first 90 minutes of your workday, that's your mission. And if you get distracted, and you probably will, don't get mad, get curious. Ask yourself, was that an external false signal, or did my hypothesis just run its course, leaving my brain to search for a new one? Try this, just for a day. You might just discover you have way more power over your attention than you ever thought possible.